Thank you.
I'd like to call this Board of Education meeting to order at 7:15. It's October 25th, 2021. We have a quorum. Thank you everyone for being here. I'd like to remind everyone to please speak into the mics, or I will remind you if I feel you're speaking too soft, so my apologies in advance. We're going to start this evening with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mrs. Wilson. I mean, I don't know if it matters, really.
All right. We beseech you, Almighty God, to bless this meeting of the Board of Education. So guide and rule over our hearts and minds, that all our deliberations and decisions may be in accordance with your will, and lead to the advancement and welfare of the community of Stratford, whom we serve. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. We're going to go into some recognitions next this evening. Dr. Sunday will lead us in those recognitions.
Thank you, Board Chair Del Bene. Good evening, everybody. We'd like to start by bringing some attention and much deserved recognition to a group of people who have really been leaders for us in our district. I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize the Stratford Public Schools nurses. Again, special appreciation to our nurses who have been doing this work and leading this work really since March of 2020. And really, this year, as for all intents and purposes, it's the third school year. We all had to learn how to be epidemiologists. However, our nurses have been holding down the fort at the district level for so many years in so many ways. Beyond taking care of the medical and health needs of our district, they are compassionately serving as therapists and counselors to many of us. Many of them give up their weekends and to contact trace and quarantine, support vaccination administrations at clinics, and to respond to questions from family and staff members. Really, they're on the clock 24/7. So we want to take the opportunity to share a small demonstration of our appreciation by recognizing all of you for everything you do for all of us to keep us safe. So on behalf of our students, our family, staff, and the Stratford Board of Education, please, I would like to call up to the stage Ms. Jill Pappen from Lordship Elementary and District Supervisor. You're gonna need a lot of hands, but for all you do, for all of us, on behalf of the Stratford Public Schools, I'd like to say thank you.
We're all smiling, right?
Smile.
Wonderful. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Again, thank you to our nurses for everything they do. It's been nonstop, and I know they're tired, but just know from everybody we love you and everything you do for us. Next, I'd like to recognize Stratford Public Schools and every educator and certified and non-certified member who keeps this engine we call our school system moving. November 15th through the 19th is American Education Week, which is nationally recognized, and it's really beginning the week before Thanksgiving. It's an opportunity to celebrate public schools for all certified and non-certified members, including our families and community partners, for the work that they do for public schools. So today, the Stratford Board of Education has a proclamation that I would like to read. And I would ask that if we have any members of the Stratford Education Association come up and receive this on behalf of our district. And I will read the proclamation. Whereas America's public schools serve all students of all the people, and whereas the strength of a community is measured by the school it keeps, and whereas the school of the new millennium need broad citizen support to meet the diverse needs of today's families and to help each student achieve his or her potential, and whereas educational excellence is built in the involvement of the entire community, including parents, business leaders, elected officials, public service personnel, and senior citizens. Now, therefore, we, the Stratford Board of Education, serving as the town of Stratford, do hereby proclaim November 15th through the 19th, 2021, American Education Week. Everyone is urged to observe this week with the appropriate activities and to renew the commitment to the education of each and every child. On behalf of the Stratford Board of Education, do we have any members here from SEA? I would like to call on Jack Del Piano.
Thank you, Ms. Del Piano. Good, how are you? Wonderful. Great. Thanks, Jess.
It is always good to celebrate the great things that's happening in our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the public speaker session of our evening, we have two speakers tonight. Mrs. Corcoran will keep a timer of 3 minutes, so I will call your name, you can come up to the podium, you have to say your name and your address, and then if you would so kindly, when you hear the 3-minute timer, if you're still speaking, please sit down. So our first speaker this evening is Mr. Keith Stirk. Thank you. Here's the mic over here.
Thanks. So I wrote some things down and I have trouble seeing it already, so I'll go as quick as I can. First, I want to say thank you for the Board of Education and the teachers for the work you've done over this past year and a half with COVID. We know it's all been tough. We never knew what to expect, and the restrictions and mandates that were put in place were certainly put in place for good reason. So thank you very much for everything.
Could you just say your name and address, and if,
Oh,
I
I'm
don't know
sorry.
if we can hear you into the mic as well. I don't know if that's adjustable, if we can lift it up.
I could rock and roll it.
Okay, or you can take it off. I don't know.
I'm good right there.
You're
I'm good.
okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you so much.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, it's Keith Stirk, S-T-I-R-K, and 145 Penman.
Great, thank you so
I'm
much.
sorry, well, bottom line, if you didn't hear me, thank you very much for everything you've done over the last year and a half. We do appreciate it. When it comes, the mask mandate is actually not what brought me here today. It really is actually an art project that my son had done. And I went to go see it in the school, and I was told I was not allowed to come and see the project. And so then I, looking into it, didn't make sense to me, so I ended up finding out it was here somewhere. I said, all right, well, let me go here. And wherever it is here, apparently during normal hours, I'm not allowed to come in here either. To me, this makes absolutely no sense at this point. Not sure why that was there. I'm sure it was something, again, as I don't know if you heard me earlier, the restrictions that were put in place are there for a reason. What I'm looking for is, I think it's time for a change where we look at some of these restrictions. The last couple of things, I coach a lot of sports here in town, and I speak to a lot of parents. There's anti-family, there's no anti-family, there's anti-mask, there's pro-mask, there's a lot of us out there. But what's common with all of us, we do not understand why parents are not allowed to go into the schools. We want to see for both sides, are you following the protocols? Are the protocols too strong for myself? And what are they? My children are telling me there's, like how they eat, there's plastic dividers. I want to see this. I want to see what is this. Doesn't matter what your feelings are, political beliefs, we just want to see it. So I'm not sure why we're not allowed, and there should be a separate open house for that purpose. So that's that one point. So I guess the question would be, why are parents not allowed into the school? The second is, to me, it was a little odd. There's a student-only vaccination at Flood School. I'm not sure if this board is where that should be brought up. I do not know, but I'll bring it to you and maybe you can direct me from there. When I went to this to see what that was, because I'm not sure about the vaccinations for the children, I asked regarding it, and they said that the children were receiving 12 and older, the vaccination, and they're also given a $20 Amazon gift card. I asked why the $20 Amazon gift card, and they said they were marketing it to children. To me, it's a joke. I don't know why we would ever market any drug, approved, not approved, doesn't matter, to children. You should take the time and effort to market that to the parents. Give us the stats, show us what it means, instead of doing $20 gift cards. I don't know if that came from here, I have no idea, but something I think should never be done again. And that's it, those are my two questions. I don't know how this works, you give answers now, or how does that process work?
So we can get your email address here,
Sure.
And then we can respond through email.
So everything is through email?
Yep.
So the two questions, just to be clear, why are the school settings seeming to be hidden from parents? And why are you marketing directly to the children? Thank you for your time.
Thank
I appreciate
you.
it. Thank you.
Okay, and our next speaker, Jerry Cunningham.
Just one more.
And again, your name, address, and as best you can to speak into the mic so we can all hear you,
Keep the mask up while speaking.
please.
All right, thank you. Good evening. My name's Jerry Cunningham, and I'm not here for what the other gentleman said, but I certainly echo that parents should be front and center in any child vaccination. It's an experimental medication. No one knows the long-term impacts on a child whose respiratory and reproductive systems aren't developed yet, but that's not why I came here, so. But I do agree with him.
And just your address, Mr. Cunningham.
Oh, I'm sorry. My address is 125 Clarendon Street in Stratford, Connecticut. I've been a resident of Stratford for 30 years and a taxpayer. I've served the town of Stratford some years ago on a cable advisory council for a few years to help understand what Cablevision was doing to rates and service and et cetera, providing to our community. But that was a long time ago. I wanted to preface my remarks by saying that Dr. Condoleezza Rice, former Secretary of State, very, very renowned individual, certainly no Donald Trump fan and all that stuff, she spoke up and spoke out against what's known as critical race theory in the classroom. And what she echoed was a sentiment that my mother used to say, and that is, two wrongs don't make a right. And her position was essentially this, that education is not a zero-sum game where you have to harm one group of people in order to help another. And I thought, coming from someone that's a doctor and as renowned as Condoleezza Rice is, I thought, that is a very profound statement. And as long as I can remember, schools were against bullying. But now the National Education Association apparently has a policy of promoting teachers in the classroom bullying one group of kids for the benefit of another. I just think that's wrong. But that being said, that's not why I'm here. The critical race theory is tied into what I wanted to say. I'm here to ask two things of the school board. The first is that this Merrick Garland, our Attorney General, with the Department of Justice, attacked parents all across this country by labeling them as domestic terrorists if they do what this gentleman did and speak up and say, hey, I have a right to know what's happening with my child, I have a right to know what's happening in the classroom. And that's just wrong. So I would ask this school board, this 1-800-CALL-FBI and all this horrible memo. I would ask the school board to resist this Bolshevik and his attempt to divide our community. Do not rat out concerned citizens who come here to express heartfelt opinions. And certainly, please, for the current and the future members of the school board, don't use the FBI as a tool to settle differences and disputes on this board. But yet, that's what this Merrick Garland character is set up. The other thing I wanted to ask of the school board is to use this horrible thing as a teachable moment in civics for our children. That we're finding out, for example, that Merrick Garland's family makes bank on critical race theory policy. They get a payday, and when you use force to protect your economic interests, we have a name for that. It's called organized crime. But in addition, apparently this was a political operation out of the White House to solicit a complaint to then go to the Justice Department and get the FBI. So we just ask, learn the facts and create a great current events curriculum for our students to learn what happens when wicked and corrupt men get into positions of power, how they can abuse their power, right down here to this school board, where they're asking you to call the cops on me because I said I agree with that guy, or whatever it is you don't like. And again, even worse is if school board members start calling in the FBI on each other. So,
Thank you.
Please resist. Issue a statement saying we have local police, we've got state police, we don't need
Thank
the
you, Mr.
FBI.
Cunningham. I'm gonna have to
Thank
stop
you.
now.
I appreciate
Thank you.
the time and the generosity. I know I ran over. Thanks to the board. Appreciate all your service.
Thank you. Moving on to the student representatives report, we're gonna start with Rebecca from Stratford High School this evening. Just remind you to speak into the mic as best you can, Rebecca.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It is hard to believe that the first 2 months of the school year are complete. Stratford High School currently has 1,089 students enrolled, the most ever at Stratford High. Our 21st century after-school program is up and running, and we currently have all spots filled with 5 students on our waiting list. This program runs from 2:10 to 5:10 on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and allows students to spend half of their time in academic support and the other half in an enrichment program. Various clubs and activities have planned fundraisers at local businesses. These are great ways for our community and school to support each other. An example of this is that our National Honor Society ran a fundraiser at Pizza Co. in Stratford to raise money to be able to create care packages for the homeless community. On September 30th, Stratford High held a virtual open house where teachers recorded themselves giving information about the class and parents had access to video links. This was a great opportunity for parents to get to meet their children's teachers on a time frame that meets every parent's schedule. Stratford High School sophomores and juniors took the PSAT on Wednesday, October 13th. 90.2% of eligible students took the test. On October 14th, a group of 6 highly motivated and involved students met for an online focus group with City Square Associates funded by the Baugh Foundation. The purpose of this was to continue the work of finalizing our portrait of a graduate. We were able to speak on the behalf of Stratford High School as to how initiatives with the Stratford Public School District define future graduates and what it truly means to be a graduate of Stratford Public Schools. On Monday, October 18th, our school counseling department held their annual financial aid night. This virtual event was run by Holly Franquette from the College Place. It is coordinated to support our junior and senior parents regarding the process of applying for financial aid. Our student council also held their Red Cross blood drive on October 19th. Stratford High School has always supported the Red Cross and the need for donors has never been greater. We are happy that we were able to get this back up and running. We are also excited that we have multiple clubs up and running. The National Art Honor Society has met and is starting up. The Art National Honor Society is a place where students who excel in art classes can go to participate in projects and further their knowledge of art. Stratford High School's Be Kind Club had their first meeting at the end of September, and they are preparing for National Kindness Day, which is on November 13th. We have some great ideas to celebrate the day. Stratford High School math team has been preparing for their next competition on November 3rd, while they will participate in a rigorous competition against schools from all over Fairfield County. The team has been meeting weekly and are excited to showcase their skills next week. The following club came from a suggestion from the high school town hall hosted by Dr. Osende. We held a meeting to reinvent the Stratford High School newspaper. Keep your eyes out for the first publication of the Red Devils Advocate, where I'm honored to be the editor-in-chief. The Stratford High School debate team also met, where there was a fantastic turnout of 10 members. In addition, we are happy to announce that based on student requests, we have started up some new clubs this year, including painting social therapy, anime, gaming, and Beyblade clubs. The Stratford High School Drama Society production of The Mousetrap by Agatha Christie is going very well. The students are excited to be able to perform on stage on November 12th and 13th. Boys and girls a cappella groups are also starting to rehearse, along with our select choir. The Vaccination Clinic on October 2nd went well, where 50 students received their first dose. On Saturday, the second dose was administered. We are hoping to see a decline in quarantine and overall decrease in positive cases as we are continuing to navigate the pandemic. Some of our sports highlights include the following. Our volleyball qualified for the state tournament in their quickest time in team history, winning their first 9 games of the season. Junior Amos Colocho is making headlines in cross country as he continues to battle for the top spot in meets throughout the fall. He earned first team all SWC honors for cross country. After winning 3 games in a row, our football team lost a tough game to North Haven last Friday night. They look to rebound next week as they travel to Groton to play the Fitch Falcons. On October 28th should be an exciting day, and at Stratford High School hosts the Junior Achievement Manufacturing Expo at 9 a.m. Students will have an opportunity to hear from local executives from Bigelow Tea and Sikorsky, as well as hear stories from high school graduates who have participated in an internship and apprenticeship programs. On October 30th, our post-prom committee will be having their annual clothing drive. While exact plans for post-prom are not finalized, the need for events like this continues. Last year, in the absence of post-prom committee was able to provide every senior who attended prom a raffle prize, ranging from flat screen TVs to Stratford High School apparel. On November 9th, Stratford High School is excited to hold their virtual parent conferences. Teachers will be present at Stratford High School, and all parent conferences will be held virtually. Stratford High School is encouraging parents to have their child present to enrich the experience for all in attendance. On November 19th, we will be hosting our annual student-faculty football game to support the Todd Stoltz Memorial Scholarship Fund. Mr. Stoltz was a beloved teacher and coach at Stratford High School who passed away in November of 2017. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Stratford High School.
Thank you, Rebecca. Rayan, am I going to see your first name right? I'm like looking at it. Rayan or Rayan?
Rayhan.
Rayhan.
Yeah.
So Rayhan from Bunnell, come on up. Again, just to remind you to try to speak into the mic.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rayhan Nagadu, and I have the honor of being the Bunnell student representative this year. Once again, thank you for having me this evening. Throughout this month, there have been multiple clubs and extracurricular activities that have been able to start up again. Clubs include Interact Club, Women's Empowerment Club, Skating, and the National Honor Society, and they have all had fun and productive meetings so far, and we'll look to continue those throughout the school year. And speaking on the National Honor Society, we are looking forward to starting a new program with Link Crew, known as Bulldog Buddies, where many of the great student leaders at Bunnell will be united with 7th and 8th graders from Flood Middle School to provide tutoring and mentorship. And we believe that this will be a great opportunity for the middle school students, to find connection and support in the high school and better prepare them for transitions in the high school. Earlier this month, we celebrated the September Students of the Month for each subject area. This year we added a new category called a social emotional learning, which will be awarded to someone who demonstrates excellence in one of the 5 competencies: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and self-awareness, or social awareness, excuse me. On October 13th, Bunnell successfully administered 467 exams to sophomores and juniors, and Bunnell teachers and administrators will be analyzing these scores and data teams in order to identify areas of growth and support for students who will be taking the SAT in March. And speaking on student support, we currently have 3 ESS-ER tutors who are currently working with over 20 students throughout the school day. And we are currently in the process of hiring more tutors to work with students after school. The 21st Century program is up and running at Bunnell. Students meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday after school for a quick snack, homework help, and to engage in many fun activities. The 21st Century program is also sponsoring Empower Leadership program, where 15 students from Bunnell and 15 from Stratford High will be participating in workshops, looking to build their leadership skills and to have enriching experiences. The CTE department is also working on getting the word out on STEM exposure, as it increases a student's likelihood to pursue careers in STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Mrs. Gray's Introduction to Engineering Design class had the pleasure in taking part in Amazon's Future Engineering class chats, where students engaged with presentations from Michael McCracken, AWS Professional Services Practice Manager, and Chris Riley, Strategic Account Solution Architecture. And on October 20th, Bunnell celebrated Unity Day in an effort to end bullying and promote kindness and inclusion. Various student clubs posted positive affirmations throughout the building, and the Be Kind Club and yearbook students chalked the front walk with positive affirmations. Students from Be Kind Club also read an anti-bullying statement over the intercom during the morning announcements. And on Saturday, October 23rd, Bunnell hosted its 41st Cavalcade bands on the Robert Manstroni football field. The bands that performed were Newtown, Norwalk, Bethel, Brian McMahon, Newtown, and our Bunnell Stratford marching band. Each band had a great performance, especially our Bunnell Stratford band, as we had our best performance of the season, going up by 10 points in our scores. Thank you. And also, congratulations to all the senior band and color guard members on their senior night and our last performance, or cavalcade performance. And tomorrow, on October 26th, 20 students will be participating in the Connecticut Association of Schools Men of Color and Leadership webinar from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Administration, counselors, teachers, all nominated 20 male students to serve on this new school-wide leadership program. And this will be the first of many events that we will be participating in throughout the school year. The next PSA meeting at Bunnell will be held Thursday, October 28th via Zoom, and a link will be sent out and posted on the school's website. And from our athletics departments, congratulations to the October Athletes of the Month, who are Matthew Stewart for football and Jocelyn Ciotti for cross country. On Friday, our football team defeated Hamden High School 17-14 in overtime. Tonight, boys soccer plays New Fairfield at 7 p.m., and the boys soccer team will be looking to qualify for the state tournament and possibly the SWC tournament, depending on tonight's outcome. Tuesday, October 26th, tomorrow, girls swimming has their senior night at Flood Middle School. Wednesday, October 27th, girls soccer plays Wilbur Cross at 5 p.m., and girls volleyball plays Notre Dame at 5:30. And last but certainly not least, Disney will be coming this week. Due to inclement weather, the filming has been moved up a day to Thursday, October 28th, which is only 3 days away. This Wednesday, the Disney crew will be coming to Bunnell for their final walkthrough. The tech crew is set in to roll on Thursday morning to rig any additional lighting and lay down cable. Trucks and campers will be arriving in the parking lot following dismissal, and filming will begin in the band room directly at 3 p.m., and filming will also continue at the football field from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. We're very excited that our students and our schools will be featured in the film. So thank you, Superintendent Osende, Mrs. Mangini, members of the board, Dr. Frazier, and Mayor Hoydick for all your support. And thank you again for allowing me to have the opportunity to share all the great things happening at Bunnell. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rayhan. You and Rebecca are excused for the evening. Thank you again. We love hearing all the exciting things happening at Stratford High and Bunnell. Great. Moving on to the administrative executive report, starting with Dr. Osundi's superintendent report.
Thank you, Board Chair Del Bene. It's always inspiring to hear the kids speak. And as you heard them speak, there's a good amount happening at both schools. And it's much overdue. I had a chance to visit the schools, and as I talked to kids, most notably the seniors, it's really about enjoying their senior year. Okay? The last couple of years of their high school experience has been largely different than most of us remember ours. I would like to recognize that Rooster goes into its second week under the leadership of Mr. James Singletary, and I'm happy to announce, I mentioned to the board in previous correspondence, that we added Shauna Johnson, who's come to us from the Indian schools, to his leadership team, and I actually saw her walk in today. Her start date's going to be November 1st next week. Okay, so again, on behalf of the Board of Education, welcome to Stratford Public Schools. As you know, I hosted my town hall series. I had a chance to visit with our high school families, our middle school families, and our elementary families. And for me, it was personally very enriching to be able to sit down and engaged in conversation with our families. I had a chance to meet with district leaders, board, building leaders, our teachers, and our students, but hearing from our families provided a different vantage point about what Stratford really is. And they were able to speak comprehensively about some of the strong points that we have as a community. Some of those things included, a sense of community, early exposure to, the arts for kids, right? Some things we do well. The quality and the relationships they have with our teachers, communication, and then, conversely, they also share with us some things that I think would be useful for us to know and reflect on as we make decisions and areas that we can improve on. Most notably, they talked about transparency, right? Talked about marketing and things that we do well, right? And across every developmental level, this concept of academic rigor came up. Okay, so there's work in front of us, but I thought it was very productive, and this is going to inform the way we go about making decisions here at the district office and in collaboration with the board. Speaking about COVID numbers, I had a chance to report out to the town today on our regular scheduled meeting. When you consider how many kids we have about 6,700 students in our district and about 1,000 certified and non-certified staff. If you review our dashboard, okay, again, this is a credit to the work of our nursing supervisors, over 78 kids. That is remarkable. Okay, that is remarkable. And working with our colleagues at the health department, and you boys have been providing with updated vaccination numbers, and our numbers are moving up. We're somewhere in the 60s, mid to high 60s. And overall, we got to talk a little bit more about the education of the virus and important that we're as healthy and as safe as possible. And we're going to see some of those reasons as my colleagues present their components of the executive report. You did hear about the PSAT test. I'm very proud and happy with the work that both Dr. Graff and Principal Delpiano did in terms of how many kids were able to sit down for the test. We anticipate that those test results will come back to the district sometime end of November or early December. We'll get a chance to unpack that data and figure out how that can inform to make sure we run from a teaching and guidance standpoint. And that's it right now.
Thank you, Dr. Sunday. Any questions from board members? QB?
It's just a comment. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I really just wanted to publicly thank Dr. Sunday for hosting those town halls. It was great having a superintendent make himself accessible and demonstrate, that the importance of collaborating and taking feedback, listening to us. I mean, I attended, yes, as a board member to some, but also as a parent, and feeling like I'm being heard. And, I got that feedback from other families as well. So I just wanted to really, really thank you. It's well appreciated to see you out there listening to families and taking that data input to develop solutions for our district. So thanks again.
Seconded. Okay. All right, thank you. Moving on to Ms. Mangini's COO report, please. Oh.
Real quick, I'm sorry.
Yes. Your hand.
Sorry, with the imminent approval of the vaccine for our 5 to 11-year-olds, is the district formulating a plan to help get the vaccine out there to our younger students?
We're having conversations about that. So, obviously, having conversations with our nursing supervisors and district leaders will have to ensue here soon, and then ultimately, we'll report to the board. But that's definitely the way.
Great, exciting, thank you.
All right, I think we're good now.
Thank you. No worries. Just a few things to report to you. As you know, in your packet this evening, you did have the financial report, which was the year-to-date through September 30th. Still early in the fiscal year, but we did bring to your attention that we are projecting a significant deficit due to special education costs. We are trying to mitigate that as best we can. We did implement an immediate spending freeze. So we will keep you posted on that as the year progresses, and we did provide in the packet an additional report on special education for your information. Also, we wanted to make you aware that last week we did send out the packets to begin developing fiscal year '23. It does seem like budget never really ends, but we wanted to get off to an early start this year. We are adding the step of actually meeting with all schools and departments to personally review their budget requests. And we do have a new initiative form that we used last year, so we will be going over those items as well with each individual school and department. And also, I just wanted to mention that the ARP ESSER grant was approved, and I was thrilled to hear Rayhan mention that the support that the students are getting through ESSER funds for tutors at the high school. It was really nice that he acknowledged that. And lastly, I have been working with the town. We are hopeful that they will move sooner rather than later in funding some of that education reserve fund that we have been asking for, which may help mitigate our special education costs. And that's my report this evening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mangini.
Thank you.
I know that a lot of that was detailed also in our finance meeting before this, but are there any additional questions?
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Moving on to the Assistant Superintendent's Report, Dr. Gato.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to also call up a teammate of mine, Joanna Najarian-Garb. Joanna is the coordinator for assessment, counseling, and 504 for the district. So she's a very busy person and gets to look at a lot of numbers. And so what she's helped with this evening is to put together the information that we received from the state, and we're going to partner in this presentation. So Joanna, come on up.
Thank you very much. So what I've been asked to do today is just provide you with the district level data. So from the assessments that were given last year. And just as a way of context, those are the same assessments that are given for grade level content mastery when we're not in a pandemic. So the test did not change. And this is high level combined data for all of these assessments. So it's not individualized data, but the individual level, so the work that's being done at the schools with your teachers, with families, with students, that's where all the work is being done to help kids. What I'm presenting today is just our overview and our summary information. So to give us a little context of where we were and where we've been, we were fully remote from March to June of 2020. And then in 2020, 2021, we were mostly hybrid for 25 weeks. But in Stratford, that meant that students were in person 2 days and remote 3. And across the state, there were a lot of different versions of what hybrid meant, but that's what it meant here. We were fully remote for 4 weeks, and then we were fully in person for 7 weeks. Our testing was also done in person and remotely. So we had a combination, and the data that's presented is combined data for that. The state has said really not to compare districts this year because of these factors. Both the testing modules and the learning modules varied so widely across the state as to make the data really not comparable as it would have been in previous years. And that there are some differences in the test results for remote and in person, but the state hasn't fully analyzed that. So what you have here, just to explain, is Smarter Balance, elementary math, and middle school math results. The blue on the elementary is 3rd grade, and it starts in 2015 and goes to 2021. You will notice that 2020 we did not test at all. And the red is 4th grade, the green is 5th, and the purple is 6th grade. You'll notice also there's sort of an upward trend over time, and then we had that year that we didn't test. Just so everyone knows, these are not the same students from year to year. So this is not cohort data, it's just the snapshot of the grade at that time. And with the middle school, we didn't test in 2020. We have 7th and 8th grade data, and we're closer to sort of where we were, say, back in 2018. I'm gonna give you a moment to look at it. And this is where we were with reading. So again, it's the same coding system in terms of the colors. 3rd grade is blue on the left, up to 6th grade. Again, we did not test in 2020. And you will notice again, middle school is sort of on par, and you will see where we landed in 2021 for reading in the elementary grades.
Are you taking questions in the middle, or would you like us to hold questions until the end?
I would say hold.
Hold, okay.
It's only about 11 slides.
Okay.
These are the results for the science assessment, and the thing about that is we only had 2 years of data. So the blue is 5th, 8th, and 11th grade for 2019. We did not test in 2020, and then it's our data for 2021. Our 11th graders had the lowest participation rate, so that's just something to keep in mind. Only 80% of our 11th graders took the science test. So these are the results with that. And yeah, this is 2 years worth of data, and again, these are not the same students, from year to year. And just so you know, for both Smarter Balanced and for NGSS, all those test results have gone home at this point in time. You should see, parents should have seen individual reports. They were mailed home. Here's our school day SAT. Again, this assessment was not given in 2020. The blue is math, and the red is the evidence-based reading and writing, and you can see kind of the trends from 2016 to 2021. The scores are available, just so you know, for students on the College Board website, so those were released pretty soon after the students took the test. And just so you know that March 2022 will be the first year that the school day SAT will be fully online. Right, so our current 11th graders have not taken the test online. It wasn't available, but they will be taking it online in March across the whole state. So everyone is going to be doing that this year. Our 9th graders are going to have a chance to practice online this year. And the other piece of information for you to know is that many schools went SAT optional because of the pandemic, and that trend is continuing. So with the optional testing. The AP, so the blue is the number of test takers, the red is the number of exams taken, and the yellow is the number of exams passed. So there's, you can see there sort of was a general trend upward, and then, the pandemic. In 2020, the test was very different. It was given, but the test was taken at home, and it was a significantly shorter test. So it's been 2 years since we've given a test that was the same, and we had students, some students quarantined on that motion. We chose to give the test in person. We did have some students take it online, for various reasons, but most students did take it the paper and pencil test. And again, those results are available for students on the College Board website. This is our data for the lost links, and for those who don't know, that is the assessment for students whose first language is not English. And so what you are looking at is from 2018 to 2020-21, each one of those little bands is actually a different component of the assessment. So students are rated on a variety of things: listening, speaking, overall comprehension. And that helps them to qualify students for services, see if they continue to need services. Our Ls our English learners were in school, not the entire year, but for most of last year. They were able to be in school so they can continue learning English. And you can see we're on par with previous years. And the results were sent to families already. The last piece of data that I have for you, before Dr. Gate is going to take over, this is physical education data. So the yellow is high school, the gray is 8th grade, the orange is 6th grade, and the blue is 4th grade. So students are required to take the physical education assessment in each of those grades or grade bands. The top one is overall the proficiency rate, and then after that is each of the different areas, so strength, push-up,
what they call the PACER, all those different assessments. And then the last one is the overall participation rate. So that is how we are rated for the physical education. And this is how our students did last year. As a point of information, the test does require students to be in person to do all of it, so it did make it a lot harder to give a PE assessment last year. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gator.
Thank you.
So Joanna will also be available when we get to the question and answer period as well, okay? So, when we received the data, we looked at it, we knew we had to make some changes, we knew that there were some things that were going to be important for us as we move forward. Obviously, one of the biggest things is really promoting in-person learning. Having our students in school with their teachers to the greatest extent possible was going to put them in the best learning situation that they could be in. So, as you know, when we had our re-entry plan, our safety protocols were put in place and followed to they're still followed to the T, and we have two of the people in the back of the room there who are supporting us as we go through this year. Questions about field trips, questions about individuals coming in. As many of you know, our quarantine process has, we haven't developed them, but we've adopted a new procedure called the box quarantine. So in last year when we were going through, whole classes having to be quarantined, etc., now we have a situation where in addition to, being supported with vaccinations and more of our students being vaccinated, more of our staff being vaccinated, so we are able to have more students in-person learning. I think that really is one of the things that we're striving to keep in place, to the best of our ability. Our curriculum and program adjustments have been made. So here we're looking at quality, looking at identifying the priority standards for each of our subject areas, and looking at the assessments and any adjustments that need to be made. So if we have students who are coming into a certain grade level, we have staff looking at, as well as department heads and coordinators, looking at the units that are part of the curriculum for that year and making whatever adjustments need to be made. We have a shifting of some of the units if needed, and looking at the resources that we're using as well for our programs. Again, what's been mentioned a couple of times tonight is some of the ESSER funding and grant funding in that. So utilizing the resources that we have, not only provided by the board, but also by those grant funds as well. We've been able to work with some of the activities and some of the resources that are used. For example, if we have students who are learning remotely, interactive programs that allow them to do labs, for example, when they can't be in school to do that. Attendance of students, if we're talking about in-person learning, attendance is hugely important. And so each building has an attendance committee that meets regularly. They're discussing students who are frequently absent and trying to find out what the issues are and how we can assist students in being in school. Engaging students, all I have to do is to, we had our student representatives come up here and speak about some of the programs that are happening after school for students. And again, with the, with the resources, the grant funding that's been provided for us, and grants that we've had, the 21st Century Grant was one that was mentioned twice tonight. Those are providing after-school programs for students. They have for a couple of years now. Opportunities to provide students with homework assistance, etc., is hugely important. We have funding that's allowed us to provide each school that has students in K through 8 with a family outreach team. And that outreach team has been meeting and working for the last year and into this year as well. So if students aren't attending school or they don't seem as engaged, these staff members reach out to families. Performance, obviously, is important to us, but in addition to academic performance, we have to look at student behavior, student progress, and social emotional learning as well. Last year, many of you remember, our focus was on social emotional learning, trying to make sure that students felt comfortable, that we provided the environment that we could, and so now we continue to do that, while at the same time now trying to make sure, and this fits with the next item that we have here, identifying student needs and supports. So trying to make sure that we're helping students or supporting students in accessing grade level content and providing those supports where we need them. So in identifying the student needs and supports, we have data teams in each building that meet regularly to review student performance data. Teachers bring forth concerns for discussion and action. You've heard SRBI, or scientifically research-based interventions, mentioned already this evening. Some people refer to it as MTSS, which is multi-tiered student support. And that is a process. Each building has a team that looks at concerns that are brought forward, and interventions are suggested to try to assist those students who need that assistance. Once that intervention is identified, then the team meets back again to see if there's been any progress. If there hasn't been, then they continue to discuss what other interventions might work for the child. Students who are in the system of supports are carefully followed to make sure that the intervention is having a positive effect. We have students who, as many of you heard, we had a number of students who were new to Stratford this year. When students come in, there's a screening process to see where their strengths are, maybe where their challenges are, so they're placed appropriately. In addition to that, many of you remember, we had a very robust summer school program to try to engage. We had a tuition-free secondary summer school for credit recovery in that. And we had, at the elementary level, we had the STEM program to try to keep students engaged. So in addition to this past summer, we'll be planning for this coming summer as well. Our resources, we have a great resource in our personnel, our reading teachers, math coaches, classroom instructional assistants. As you've heard already, we have tutors that are grant funded, who are working during the school day as well as after school. We are fortunate this year to be able to have 7 tutors that were hired to work with our elementary quarantine students. They're working virtually, and when a student has to quarantine or be out because either they've been exposed or are sick with COVID, then they're assigned or given the access to the virtual tutor who will support them. In addition to that tutor, the building-based resources, the reading teachers, the classroom teacher, the math coach, they're always there to help the tutor understand where the child is and the process that's going on. We have virtual units for those tutors also as well. The devices that we're using, in addition to technology, interactive software, providing advices, there's been a great support by IT, not only to assist students in the classroom, but also families, to help families keep their child connected to school. As far as collaboration opportunities for educators, obviously Dr. Osundi, it's already been mentioned, Dr. Osundi's town hall opportunities for, not only for the families, but for our educators to come and hear what families are saying as well. Our building administrators meet on a regular basis with the superintendent. School improvement plans are already produced, goals are set, and discussions have been had with building principals and the superintendent. We've received 2.5 days prior to students coming in for professional development. We have our professional learning communities this year. We have 5 days, and the focus is on supporting students in accessing grade level content. So I've mentioned that before, and the purpose of this focus is that we don't get stuck in the mindset of remediation, because students haven't been in school for 18 months doesn't mean that they haven't in some way been learning. And so if we keep saying students are behind a year, they're behind a year and a half, we never really make up and get them to the point where they need to be. So to the extent possible, we are trying to present to students grade level material. If they need support as the teacher is teaching, then the support is identified, and to the best of our ability, we try to support that student. The focus also for professional learning communities is the environment, the school environment, and the classroom environment, and looking at, again, as I said before, student performance. So finally, in addition for that section there, we have identifying supports and interventions that can support students. November 2nd is a full-day professional development day, and we have another 2 hours in March. Our building faculty meetings, our department meetings, our grade level meetings, those are all opportunities for educators to work together, to collaborate on student performance. The other thing that I think is important for us, and I know through Dr. Osundi's work, that trying to communicate with families and collaborate with families is going to be huge if we're going to be successful in doing what we need to do. Some suggestions for families: positive messaging to your child, encouraging them. You know, this is a tough time for them, but trying to keep things positive, trying to establish some routines. Some of the things that we're seeing, that because students have been out of school for 18 months, just re-engaging with other students. The social piece of school has been something that I know many building leaders have been focusing on and speaking about. Asking families to please increase connection and conversation with their children. There are parent and guardian tutorials and workshops. Parents' Place is reopening again, and we're really very happy about that. Some of their activities are going to be done in person as opposed to virtually, so we're really very happy about that. We also have access to the Parent C. Many of you were here in Parent C. The Parent C grant has come back, and so we're very anxious and excited about that. And many school activities we hope parents will engage in. We know that weekly email newsletters are sent out from the buildings as well as the district, and there are actually 2 websites that we hope parents will take advantage of. There are tutorials there for parents, information, etc. But, you know, I think overall the first line of communication would be to a child's teacher. Working with the building administration also is, you know, highly encouraged. So again, we have elementary and middle school parent conferences coming up, and we hope that those are going to be as successful as they have been in the past. Joanna, you want to come up and see if we can answer some questions?
First, I just want to say thank you. Just as an educator who's a part interventionist this year, like, this work takes everyone, and it's every single day, and this is what's happening in the buildings every day, and it's very exhausting because there's a lot happening, and it takes all hands on deck. So I want to say thank you to everyone, administrators, teachers, everyone in the school building, everyone, because there's definitely a lot of moving parts every day. So I just have 2 questions. First, I was just curious what the participation rate differences were in elementary and middle school. I know you had mentioned high school was lower, obviously, but that was after you had said that about high school was my written question for elementary and middle. If we knew if it was decreased because some kids were at home and they weren't taking it.
There was a range. There was a range, but I don't have the exact numbers. We can get them for you.
Yeah,
but there was a range depending on the program and the school.
Okay. And just my other question was, like, looking at the physical education data was challenging for me because I didn't know what we were comparing it to. Like, we were looking at it from last year, but if we were looking at growth or decay or, you know, areas of improvement, I just didn't know how to interpret that. I didn't know how to interpret that.
Yeah, Dr.
If we had some, if we could also get some
We can ask
previous
Dr.
year data,
Fraser,
just
we can
compare to.
ask Dr. Fraser for the comparative data from previous years.
Well, the other piece to keep in mind is that, to Joanna's point, this is, the cohorts of kids are different every year.
Right.
You know, so the data is different, but, to make a notable point, you know, looking at the data we saw, I believe it was in grade 8, the vast majority of kids, were able to pass the test and 4 more tests. It's about 50 or so, 53% were able to do that. And that number that's not typical, so that's a pretty high number. And to Joanna's point, the test had to be administered in person, so it's possible that lower in-person test taking might have influenced some of the numbers. One of the things I would say, you know, when you analyze data like this, particularly when you take a look at the SBAC data, to Dr. Gage's point, last year, and over the last couple of years, this district, the whole state, the whole world, the whole country, really put a heavy emphasis on SEL, even before academics, right? So whenever you see this continuous downward trend across multiple grade levels, whether it's grade 3, 6, 8, 11, whatever it is, that could be interpreted as a statistical anomaly, right? Which suggests that there's some kind of external factor that's hidden at every developmental level, and it's just a downward trend. So, you know, the one thing I want to say very publicly is that, you know, this data, it certainly is not the prettiest data. We know that the state has, you know, statewide data that is very comparative to this. But at the same time, I think it's important to note that this data is not, in my opinion, as a new superintendent who's come in and spent a lot of time analyzing the data, is number one, it indicates that we have a lot of work in front of us. That's first of all. But number two, I don't think this data is a reflection of the quality of our teachers' work, nor is it a reflection of the capabilities of our kids, okay? But nonetheless, this is what the current data says, which now says to us that we have a lot of work in front of us. That being said, I'm very encouraged, okay, because this summer, we worked with our principals, we gave them a deadline of August 20th to complete the school improvement plans. We did those things, and over the last couple of weeks, it's gone through several iterations. Myself and Dr. Gator have gone on a tour visit and sitting down with all the principals, and the level of precision and comprehensive explanation that they speak about in terms of their academic needs at the building level, to me is going to trend us in the right direction. But what is actually even more peculiar about this is, as we have conversations, they're sharing with us that a lot of our faculty, a lot of our teachers is like academic goals, right? So I want us to dive into this work, knowing that this is the priority for what we're doing this year, okay? Our teachers are doing things they need to do, our nurses are doing things they need to do to make sure that we are in person, we're safe and healthy, right? And that's the discrepancy in the data. But I also don't want us to lose fact of the reality that we're still in a pandemic, right? So we're going to do the work around academics, right? And I heard from our families this constant theme of rigor at any developmental level, right? That will be our commitment through collaborative discussions and workshops. We're going to continue to dive into this work using data with our SRBI model. At the same time, trying to caution against, if the data looks as bad, this does not unintentionally place us in a place where every child is now referred for IEP services, right? So there's a lot of work in front of us. I think our teachers, our leaders are going to need the support of the board and the community to make sure we stay on top of this and make sure our kids receive the right academic support.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to also comment and congratulate Dr. Sunday's point. May not be the prettiest, but I didn't find it the ugliest. I mean, I was really expecting something quite horrific after what we've been through, so I want to thank the teachers who really made sure that our kids were actively learning, although not face-to-face. So I wanted to make that point. My second concern really in looking at some of this stems from pre-pandemic with our AP coursework. Our kids are given an extremely amount of opportunity really here to excel in Stratford with our AP course offerings. The thing that we continually fail at pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, during pandemic, is not being able to pass the exam. So I hope that moving forward, part of our processes for redevelopment and expansion of our offerings, we can really tool our kids with what they need to succeed in actually passing them. So I just wanted to highlight that very low scores.
Excuse me? I just want to say, Dr. Data, you mentioned, not saying they fell behind or that they lost any kind of, learning. I know when my daughter got her scores, for fourth grade, right? So she's excelling at reading, but her math, while it was above, the school and the district average, it still wasn't great. But this year she's back in school, and she came home and she was like, I did a test or a quiz or something, and I'm doing better in math. And it's the feedback that she's getting from her teacher. Like, she knew her scores in fourth grade wasn't the best, but the teacher's giving her live, real-time feedback, and she's feeling motivated, right? Like, I can do this. And I just want to say, that's very important in motivating kids. And I see her trying, and I just wanted to give that feedback to you to say the teachers, are doing that and how much I appreciate that. So thank you all for the hard work.
I just wanted to make one comment here, because we've talked about this as coordinators. There's a lot of people who are looking at this information. The math in particular, the board supported the adoption of a new math program and also put into place math coaches right about 2017. And what we started to see really was an uptick in our performance over from 2015 to 2019. And, unfortunately we had the pandemic, but the board has supported us in the past. We really do feel that we have a lot of community with support. We didn't mention our community partnerships, but those at the South End Community Center, Sterling House, the Y, all of those community partners help us just as much. They're an important part of who we are. And so we also wanted to just give a shout out to them as well, because they're important to us in the work that we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We're going to take a 5-minute recess at 8:21. We adjourn at 8:26 for a quick break for one.
You gotta talk closer. You're really quiet.
I'm sorry.
No, you're totally, don't worry about it, don't worry about it.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. I just gotta, maybe some better, I like today, I'm like early and I had this, I'm not trying to, I don't figure it out. Yeah. Yeah. I see everything, yeah. Well, when those guys left me, I watched leaving the door, I counted how many times the door opened and shut to make sure that,
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
It's like this.
2 minutes.
Yeah, it's right there. Because I got my right eye compensated. I just hope in a couple of years, just to get it down. I'll know more vertebrae if I have a doctor's appointment.
I've been hanging out with him.
Another one to see if I got to do surgery. Yeah, it's just stress. Yeah. Sitting on the couch I wear the glasses, just see things, you know, now it's like pretty good 20/20, everybody knows so when it was forced, it flipped. So now when it overflowed, it just sounds like steam, so now the blood disappears. When I had
So many people looked at it. That looks good. Do you have performance?
It does, yes. You know what? When the guys
I'm good, thank you. And then he's over it.
We didn't call you back. That's all right. I know where you're, but oh, maybe not. Yeah. Yeah, he hired a guy from here. He missed us. Hey, that's what you're going to do.
I'd like to call back to order the meeting at 8:26. Thank you, everyone. We are moving on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 27th and also the personnel document. Motion made by Mr. DiLorenzo, seconded by Mr. Pagella. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Passes 7-0. Moving on to items for action discussion. I'm going to do the budget transfers one at a time that came over from the Finance Committee for recommendations that we received this year. I will first entertain a motion to approve budget transfer number 1. The proposed transfer is to adjust salary accounts in object 111 for various reasons such as retirements, resignation, transferred, new hires, and salary reclass adjustments in the total of $903,740.34.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Pagella, seconded by Ms. Cupie. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0. I'll entertain a motion to approve budget transfer number 2 to adjust salary accounts in object 112. Adjustments are for new elementary part-time custodian positions as well as retirements and employee transfers. I believe there was a correction on the amount. It's a $364,494.41. Motion made by Ms. Cupie.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Corcoran. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0. I'll entertain a motion to pass budget budget transfer number 3, proposed transfer to adjust the speech therapist salary count in object 111. The position will not be filled in fiscal year 2022. Total budget transfer amount is $110,647.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. DiLorenzo, seconded by Mrs. Wiltsey. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0. The next item for action discussion is the proposed curriculums for adoption. And I will take them as a group here to approve the SAT course ELA, the SAT course Math Prep, Environmental Biology, Chemistry 1, and Advanced Placement Physics. Motion made by Mrs. Corcoran. Seconded by Mrs. Wiltsey. Discussion. These were all moved forward from the curriculum committee with a favorable recommendation. Lots of great discussion. And then, are those recorded too? Anybody wants to?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody's welcome to watch. Okay. Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to proposed policies. For first read, graduation, I will entertain a motion to accept the first read for graduation requirements 6146 in the revision of face masks coverings, policy number 5141.8.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. DiLorenzo,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Cupie. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0. Moving on to proposed policies for adoption. We had the first reading at our September board meeting. I will entertain a motion to accept policy 5144.4, physical exercise and discipline of students, 5145.42, students in section 504, and 6146.1, grading.
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Cupie, seconded by Mr. DiLorenzo. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0. The next item for discussion and action is to set the date for graduation for Stratford Public Schools. Perhaps Dr. Osunde could just speak briefly to this choice.
Of course.
Yeah.
At this time, our last day of school is, inclement weather dependent, is June 14th, and the state law allows the board to set the graduation date. So right now, we're having conversations about looking at the 13th as the potential date, and conversely, the 13th is not the selection that we can look at, consider the 15th of June.
So it's just for discussion right now.
Discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Sunday. Set the board meeting dates for 2022. Sadly, I will not be sharing at that time, but especially Ms. Cupie, Mrs. Corcoran, and Mrs. Wiltsey, please make sure you review those dates. And we do have to accept those dates. So I will entertain a motion to set those board meeting dates for 2022.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Pagella,
Second.
seconded by Mr. DiLorenzo. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0. The next item is our the grievance level 3 decision for our action.
I'd like to make a motion to send a letter to the Stratford Education Association denying their level 3 grievance.
Motion made by Mrs. Corcoran.
So moved.
Seconded by Mr. Pagella. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0. Moving on to tabled items.
I'd like to make a motion, please, to take residency verification off the table.
Second. Motion made by Mrs. Wiltsey, seconded by Mrs. Corcoran to take residency verification off the table. It's now off the table. Mr. Imbro? Are you supposed to be here?
Unfortunately, he was not feeling well, so he's not here today.
Okay.
Is there a chance that we can receive a residency report? Because it's not one in our packet.
I do have some data to report. It hasn't been much change since the last report. There's ongoing conversations. Ms. Amber has not received any significant anonymous calls that have led to any findings. That suggests there are other district students with us.
So no calls to the number. Any investigations from the schools?
No,
Are there any open at this time?
not at this time.
Could we request that Mr. Imbro be at our November meeting?
He assured he will make every effort.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders. I'll make a motion to put this back on the table.
Second. Motion by Mrs. Wilkie, seconded by Mrs. Corcoran, is back on the table. Committee assignments and reports. Curriculum met October 12th, I believe it was Mrs. Corcoran.
It was my
Leading that meeting.
Well, we went over the courses that we just approved, as well as information from AP Latin course, which is exciting. And we also received a presentation on Gizmo and Pivot resources that are used in the classrooms as sort of interactive lab resources, which were really neat. And we heard from Dr. Gita about how we are supporting our quarantined elementary students, which she mentioned earlier with the tutors. It was a great and brief meeting.
Thank you. Mrs. Rodia, Finance?
Well, we met just before tonight's meeting and we, approved the transfers and received a thorough accounting of our budgeting process and the fact that we're going to be facing a deficit, a big deficit in special ed. And all that is part of the record.
Thank you. School planning did not meet. The liaison Board of Ed committee was October 20th. Meeting run by the town. Ms. Mangini gave them a financial report. She also advocated again for that reserve and how important it is for us to get those monies essentially to help with our anticipated deficit. Mr. Llewellyn was there as well, and he talked about the project at Stratford High School. He gave us an update there. And it's also a short, productive meeting. And policy review, Mrs. Rodia.
Well, policy review, we had our meeting and for first read, you saw what we're working on, and hopefully the next meeting it'll be approved.
Thank you so much, everyone. I will now entertain a motion to go into executive session with the 7 board members, Dr. Asunde, and I believe legal counsel. Correct, Dr. Asunde?
Correct.
Any motion? Motion made by Mrs. Wilkie, seconded by Ms. Cupie. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. If I can just ask everyone to step out of the room, please, besides those names. Board members, turn off. Oh, at 8:37. Okay, I'd like to come out of executive session at 8:55 p.m. I just want to make clear that no votes were taken in executive session. I will entertain a motion to accept the recommendation of Attorney Cotter. Motion made by Mrs. Rodia. Seconded by Mr. DiLorenzo. I'm going to take a roll call vote. Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mrs. Rodia?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Mr. DiLorenzo?
Yes.
Ms. Cupie? Mr. Pagella?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, passes 7-0. I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:55.
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Rodia, seconded by Mr. DiLorenzo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Have a nice night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Here's green highlighted in yellow.